I'm Kytia.
And I'm Jerrell.
Welcome to our podcast where we talk about glowing through life
Instead of just going through life.
It's a his and hers perspective about modern topics and hot button issues.
From Christians just like you.
Well, let's get into it.
We're gonna glow through it. My faith in God, He taught me how to do it.
Welcome to Glowing Through It. Thank you for hearing, I always do that, hearing this Glowing Through It again, and here we are, it's talking about marriage, and don't be scared of talking to your wife. Okay, so boys, men, you guys please, you don't have to be afraid and scared of telling your wife stuff that you may be in hiding or something. You don't have to be really scared of saying stuff to your wife. That's not a problem. But yeah, you don't need to be scared. And yeah.
Hello and welcome to episode 30 of Glowing Through It. My name is Kytia L'amour and I'm here with my husband,
Jerrell.
So today is maybe going to be a little quicker than usual, but we're going to try to answer as many questions as we can. We did a different version of this for questions, me asking my husband questions that wives are too afraid to ask theirs. And so this one is, my husband is going to be asking me questions that husbands might be feeling uncomfortable asking their wife, be too afraid, too awkward or whatever. So I have no idea what the questions are. He found some online that are common. This has been going around. This is like a tag. I've seen it on different podcasts and different YouTube videos and stuff. So I'm interested to see which ones he chose. And so let's go ahead and start whenever you're ready, Jerrell.
Let's go ahead. So yeah, I found 10. I found 10 of these. And some of them are maybe more difficult questions. Some are just kind of inquisitive ones. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. So we'll just run through them and get through as many as we can. So the first one is, what is the most difficult part about being married?
The most difficult part about being married in general, or like married to you?
Is it general? General.
Okay, so all these are general. Okay, so the most difficult part of being married, from a wife's perspective, I think is, it's kind of hard not to be biased because I can kind of only speak for myself. But one of the things I think that does come up, you see it in movies all the time, where it's just like, oh, like you want to fix your husband or change your husband or like make them version 2.0 when you fell in love with them for a reason. But I think because of what you see in society, it's hard not to compare, I guess, your marriage or your partner to other people. And like, well, I wish my husband did this like that person did, or I wish he was better at this, or I wish he saw more eye to eye on this subject with me or whatever. So I think for me, the hardest part was to stop trying to change you. I think we both have compromised and we've both grown, but I think I was very aggressive in the beginning of like, this is how you should talk. This is how you should act. Even this is how you should dress. This is how your hair should be because now we're married. And I don't think I had that same pushback from you. Not that I was perfect, but I think you were a lot more gentle if you had a problem with something about myself. But yeah, I think that is, to me, one of the hardest parts that I can think of off the top of my head is just like the urge to want to change someone, to make them quote unquote perfect, but then realizing we're both imperfect and we both have to grow. And just because they're doing something different than you maybe would doesn't mean they're wrong. And I think that's difficult sometimes and comes with time and wisdom to just say, you know what, this might be different, but it's actually not a bad thing. And this actually complements me well. Like, we don't have to be the same person, or he doesn't have to be like that other husband married to my friend, or he doesn't have to be like this ideal that I made up in my head.
Good answer. So it touched on two other questions, so I'm gonna just skip to those now. So another question is it the woman's job to, quote, fix their man?
So women are a helpmate, or some people say helpmeet. And like, I would actually love to know from you in the comments, those of you who are dating or engaged or married, do you feel like you have a burden or a responsibility to change someone or fix someone? Because I actually had this conversation with a friend, and I've had this conversation with a family member too, where they were just like, I got married, but like, what in the world is this? I'm learning so much more about them because now we're living together, or now there's pressure and there's actual like stresses that are affecting our relationship. And sometimes you just don't know how your partner's going to react in things until you literally go through it. So I think for me, learning the difference between helping and fixing, because yes, my first instinct was to fix, like I could change this and this and this and everything would be great, but that's just not how it works. So I think for me, praying more, because I used to pray like, God, fix him and like help me to fix him and like make him do like something, like change it. And then something that the Lord kept reminding me was that I'm paired up with him for a reason, and it's to help him, maybe to help him see things in a way that he didn't normally see it, or to pray through some things that he doesn't understand as maybe like a generational curse, or like that's just not cool, or that's just not wise, or that's just not what a husband should be doing. Like if there's areas of lack or whatever, I think it's just seeking the Lord. Because if the Holy Spirit is telling you there's an issue and you know it is a blatant issue that you can't just gloss over, I think getting instruction from the Lord is the best thing. And I've heard that with other married people that I've talked to, where they're just like, man, when I gave it to the Lord and I sought him on it, I got a completely different strategy than what I was going to do, because what I was doing was not helping at all. And then the Lord was like, do this simple thing. And then it like made a huge difference. So yeah, I think not fixing, but definitely helping and supporting and encouraging growth.
And the husband appreciates that. So this is another one you kind of already touched on with the first question.
Then stop asking me stuff.
Okay, that concludes our. So this one is, do you? Oh, I'm in the wrong question. Okay, no, that's not it. Okay, do you ever find yourself comparing your husband or marriage to other couples?
Yeah, I think everybody does. I think if somebody told you they didn't, I don't want to call them a liar, but I'm just saying they're probably not being honest. So it's hard, especially in difficult times, because when we were like newly dating and like everything's the best and we're long distance, so when we do see each other, it's like best case scenario, we're blocking off work weeks so that we can spend all this time together. We're doing all the fun stuff that we love to do. And for me, I was just like, man, my marriage is like so great, or going to be so great. Like, look at all these great qualities. I waited on the Lord. He picked my spouse for me. Like, it's going to be awesome. But I think when reality hit and we actually did have a lot more responsibilities of like, now we're finding a place to live together. Now we have to come up with the money for rent. Now we have to pay bills. And now we have to talk through very uncomfortable conversations about life, about family dynamics, about, extraneous things that kind of come up. I think it is hard not to compare. And I think for me, the biggest thing that has been an issue in the past for us has been finances. And a lot of people say like finances is one of the things that can literally ruin a marriage. If there's issues with it, like you guys disagree, or you're always poor, or you don't know how to budget, or money becomes the most important thing because you're just trying to keep buying stuff and fill a void. So I think for me, the main thing that I think I would compare to is like when we're in Struggle City, USA, if we went out with people and it's just like, look at them ordering anything they want on the menu, like, and I can't, like, I'm going off of like whatever's $10 and under, or like, look at me going on the clearance rack because, I need clothes, but this is what I can afford, or look at us going out with friends and browsing in the store, like they could just buy anything in here. And it would just be like hard not to compare that. I think that's honestly the main thing that I think I would compare, because it was a lack that we had. So I think most comparisons probably do come with like a lack, like, oh man, like we're not intimate, this isn't our thing. But for people who like have the issue of like, we're not intimate, and then we see other people, they're all over each other and they're doing it every day, and it's like, I wish I had that. Or like, we hardly can communicate, look at how well they talk all the time and they're on the same page. So yeah, I'd say whenever there was a low point of anything I felt that I lacked, I would definitely in the past compare that to other things that I saw. But what helped me to stop doing that was focusing on the Lord, getting rid of a lot of distractions. I did have a lot of unhealthy relationships and people in our lives that were toxic. There was just a lot going on to get my focus off of the Lord. And what fixed that was just being grateful, being appreciative, and like I said before, seeking God for strategy. Because if he brings us together, he doesn't want us to be broke. He doesn't want us to not be able to communicate. He doesn't want us to like not be intimate ever. He doesn't want us to like all of a sudden we have kids and that's all we focus on, and we never look at each other. Like, he wants it to be abundantly blessed as we go through, our assignment as husband and wife. So I look to him to fix it, as opposed to like, well, I'm going to get advice from my girlfriend because like, her man make this kind of money or whatever. It didn't work for us. I don't know if that works for other people, but it didn't work for us. Trying to get human advice on a lot of issues that we've had, it always came through the Holy Spirit. So long-winded answer is that. Welcome to my TED Talk.
Oh no, again. Good answer. So, like you've been doing, that question bleeds over into another question, but maybe you can expound on this point. How important are finances within the marriage relationship for women?
I wish I knew like a poll of like how important that is for women. Because I think for myself, I always had this notion that I would marry a very wealthy man. And part of that came from when I was in high school, and I'm like, I'm not gonna date. I'm gonna wait for my husband. And by me doing that, I feel like God's gonna give me the lottery. I'm gonna hit the jackpot because of what I did. And so I think with certain things not being perfect, like I'm like, we're gonna be wealthy, we're gonna buy a house, we're gonna have this, we're gonna have that. And I was like, well, this didn't go according to my plan. But over the years, realizing the different ingredients that we did have in our relationship that were amazing and necessary and would get us through the fires, that helped me to see things in a different perspective. Because some people do put money on this really high pedestal of like, basically, if you got money, we're good. I don't care if you cheat on me. I don't care if you sleep with me or not. As long as we got money, we good, because of their background. And some people who are like, I don't care, like, as long as he loved me, I'll be under a bridge, baby. I think there's even a Whitney Houston song with her and Bobby Brown where it's like they're singing about how much they love each other, and they're like, basically, I'll be under a bridge with you or in a train station. I forget, and I was just like, ain't gonna be me. Like, ain't nobody putting me in a train station. I don't care. I don't love anybody that much. But I think overall, to answer your question, having security, having some sense of security with finances would be very important for people, especially from the traditional route where, we do believe in like the man being the provider. We talked about that when we were dating. But for some people, that is not important. They're like, I'm a woman. I'm fine being a breadwinner. I'm a doctor. I got this. And, we have love and we meet on so many other different levels. And that's just not an issue. So I think it just depends on your background and I guess what you're expecting out of the relationship, ?
Relationship ? And as you are doing, this will dovetail into this other question.
I promise I don't know, to you guys out there listening, I don't know what questions he's asking. I'm not looking at his phone. I'm trying not to look down at his notes. So this is just how we roll, baby.
Yeah, the Holy Spirit connecting the dots. Let's see. So what I was saying, blah blah, some. Oh yeah. Do you ever wish your traditional wife and husband roles were reversed? Question mark.
Like, do I wish that I would be the provider or head of household, or what do you mean by that?
Like the traditional roles of like provider, head of the house, those kind of things. Like if it was switched, because some, like you mentioned, some relationships, some people don't care or they have a different opinion on what they want to bring to the relationship.
I feel like what the Bible explains as far as Christian households, I believe that's it. I know it's either in Ephesians 5 or Ephesians 6. It's like instructions for Christian households. And it, talks about how the husband should lead, how the wife should support, how we should submit to each other, and how we should treat our children and stuff. And there are other scriptures I think about men providing for their household. I forget where that is, but I know it does exist because I synced it. So I would say God has an ideal plan for humanity. And in that plan, like, that's just what I want. And so I think I've always had, even since elementary or middle school, there's just certain things desires I had in my heart for, like, I'm not going to get divorced, and this is the kind of husband I'm going to have, and this is the kind of marriage we're going to have, this is how we're going to raise our kids, to believe in Jesus and, to have love and all this stuff. I want to travel. Like, there were certain key things that I just believed I would have. And I do have that, There's other, things where it's like, oh, I'm going to be rich or whatever. And this is because I thought I'm going to hit the lottery because I saved myself. But as far as like key ingredients, I guess, in a marriage or relationship, I'd been thinking about it since I was younger. And I never once thought I want to be the breadwinner or I want to be in control. I think I did kind of, unfortunately, that kind of happened because, as I mentioned before, we had financial issues, and there was times where I would get opportunities and I might have been making more than him. There was resentment there. There was issues there where it's just like, well, if I'm going to do this, like, I don't need a man to be broke. I can be broke by myself. And, I just have to work. And I just felt like we have to do what we have to do by any means necessary. And this is back when I was not involving God in my career and allowing him to guide me. So I made a lot of mistakes. We both did. So I think, however, through us resubmitting to the Lord, asking him for wisdom and guidance, he's helped us to get back to our initial plan as people who were just dating about, you are the head of household, you are the provider, I am going to work, but this is how our finances would kind of be split up within the household. This is the different responsibilities we would have. And I love that. And that's what I've seen most of my life anyways, is like even though my parents divorced, when I lived with my dad, he was hustling, like he was working hard, started his own company, like did very well. And then when I moved to be with my mom and my stepdad was going to work, paying the bills, and that's how it was. My mom stayed at home with us, and that's the dynamic that they chose. And I really like that. I lived in that, and I want that for my children as well, and for my household.
You talked about God. So, in your opinion, what role does God play in the marriage relationship?
He is, because he knows everything, and he has a plan. I'd say he's basically the pilot of the ship. It's not that we have no control, because we have free will. We can choose yes or no about what life he wants for us. But at the end of the day, as a Christian, God-centered relationship, marriage that we have, for me, it's just, he's the end-all be-all. He's the beginning and the end. Like, he is all of the answers, and, we just seek him on that. And it's kind of, it used to be daunting. Like, why can't we just have a blueprint? Like, why can't you just tell us everything all at once? But then it's almost in a way now that we're leaning on him and relying on him and taking a lot of steps of faith, and that's just our lifestyle now. It's like a really cool like treasure hunt or like scavenger hunt where it's just like, okay, Lord, like what's next? And then he's like, here's what's next. And you're like, cool. Or like, oh no, that sounds hard. But you're still just like, I trust you, Lord, like, and I'm going to do whatever you have me do. So he's definitely in the driver's seat. He's definitely the captain. He's definitely the pilot. And I think that's where he should be because he's God. That's just where he should be in life, period. Whether you're married or not, like he should be the one that you seek about all of your major life decisions.
This was a question that I altered a little bit because it kind of related to something you just said a couple questions ago. You mentioned divorce wasn't an option. How do you approach that concept in your marriage, or how have you approached that concept in your marriage to like how do you achieve that, I guess?
Well, for me and my husband, we did an episode called Why Divorce is Not an Option. And that's a whole podcast that has a lot of really good quality nuggets in there about why divorce is not an option for us. And I think, like I said before, if God is the captain, if God is the pilot, if he's the one you're seeking, then I think the main thing is, okay, Lord, I believe you brought us together. You made it very clear. You showed all the signs. You gave all the confirmation. So the simplest thing and the number one answer I would say is if you brought us together, there's a reason for it. And you know what we need. And you know what we're going to go through. And you have all of the solutions. So if that's the case, then divorce is not an option because God will give you all the solutions if you really want to stay together.
Good stuff, good stuff. So, I guess speaking of conflict, how do you deal with conflict within the marriage? Conflict resolution, dealing with difficult arguments or different things like that.
This sounds like a Q&A about marriage in general and not necessarily hard questions.
I didn't find a ton of hard questions.
Oh, okay.
So it's a mix of them.
Okay. So how do we handle conflict? I would say if you have different conflict styles, because I feel like this could be an uncomfortable thing for a man to ask, where it's like we have very different ways of handling conflict. Like, how do you come to terms with that or meet in the middle? Maybe, because I feel like that is a problem that a lot of marriages do have, where the husband goes about it one way and the wife goes about it completely different. And that was kind of our story. Definitely in the beginning, like I said, I was very aggressive person because I think it's fine to be assertive. You should assert yourself. You should have confidence. But when it comes to being aggressive and dominating and demeaning, that's when you cross a line that can be like very hurtful and damaging to a man, because I think respect is very important. And even in the Bible, when it talks about Christian households, I do believe it says wives respect your husbands and husbands love your wives, right? So obviously that is a very important thing and a different distinction. So I think for me, what I've learned to do, because I mean, it hurts me to hurt anybody else. You know, it's hard when you're in the heat of the moment and you're just like, oh man, I said that and I wish I could take it back. Like, you can't unhear that. You know, I've had a few moments like that, but seeing that hurt in him, and it's just like, man, like, this is the last person I want to be, you know, tearing down. So I think what I kept in the forefront of my mind is to keep the respect there. And I haven't been perfect, and it's been a journey of learning the difference between aggression and being assertive, and facing things head on versus just like exploding. So if I can think of ways to stay respectful to him and treat him just like a human being and not just like we're, you know, fighting each other and like I'm going to win. It's like the common goal is that we win, that we get through this. But having that love and concern for someone, especially a man, a husband, to respect them even in your disagreements, I think is important. And asking those questions, because I think we have had those conversations where it's like, well, when we're arguing and you do this, like, it makes me feel this way, and then I shut down. Or when we're arguing and you do this, like, I feel like you don't even care. Like, you don't even love me. And so when we see those things, it's like, that's not what I meant, or like, that's the last thing I wanted to make you feel, or whatever. It does make you think about it in future conversations of like, okay, don't do this and don't do that. Like, keep it in, what is it? Don't go below the belt in boxing. Yeah. So like, yeah, don't go below the belt. Keep it civil and keep it in love, and just try to find the solution. And so, yeah, there's been a lot of trial and error in that, I will say.
Okay, let's see if I think there's 2 left. If any of these is difficult enough for you. Do you regret saving yourself for marriage?
Not at all. Not one bit. It's kind of funny. There's some shows that we watch. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard of these, but Married at First Sight, Love is Blind, and I'm sure there's more that we haven't seen, but like, we are very curious, about people's dating life, their communication, like how they get to where they are, how they figure out their relationship. And it's like, these are called social and dating experiments, but they're real people, as far as I know, real people's lives. And it's just like, it's so interesting to watch, because you see people who make certain decisions based on their own beliefs and morals, and maybe it's worked out for them in the past, maybe it hasn't really, but it's like, you watch it and you're just like, oh man, like, I'm so glad I don't do that, or I'm so glad that this isn't my thing. Especially, people where it's like, well, obviously you move in, obviously you're intimate, and it's like, so much of the talk is about intimacy. You know what kind of intimacy I'm talking about. So we fast forward through a lot because we're not really interested in that. Like, who cares, honestly? But we want to know, like, the dynamics of personalities and their goals and how important different things are to them, and if that makes or breaks them and stuff like that. So I think, what was the question about?
Do you regret saving yourself?
So yeah, when I see these type of situations play out, whether it's on a TV reality show or it's someone in person, and they're just like, well, of course you got to try it out. And, and you think, and some people do, and then they end up divorcing and going their separate ways, and it doesn't work out. And I always feel like, golly, I can't imagine being with someone in that way, only to split and walk away. Also, I can't imagine being with someone in that way after only days and thinking that's fine. As a Christian, there's a lot to be said about sexual immorality in the Bible. You can read it, you can look it up. These are not my opinions. And I believe that the Lord has certain guidelines for us for our own good and for our own safety. So me saving myself for marriage, I've just seen over time how much it's come in handy and why it's been so good for myself, my heart, my soul, my emotions, my spirit, like in every way. I'm just so glad, because it's a choice that you make, and I could have, chosen to be like, forget this, I don't want to do that anymore, and been active once I hit 18, or like whenever I wanted to. But yeah, I'm glad that both of us had made that decision and did, I guess, whatever it took, even though it was difficult, to make sure that we had that blessing in our marriage.
The final question. Good or bad, how would you say children have changed your marriage relationship dynamic?
I don't know if I want to say pros and cons, because like that, it sounds so like scientific of like, well, there's pros and cons, and you weigh out the pros, and then, whatever, the cons are worth it. But it's like, there's blessings and then there's hard stuff when it comes to having children. Just like there's blessings and then there's hard stuff about getting married, but it's worth it. So I would say, what was the question?
You could say, what is the question? So it's basically good or bad. How would you say children have changed your marriage, relationship, or dynamic?
Like for good and bad, like listing both, or
No, I think
either?
it's like, in your opinion, like how has it changed? Has it been mostly positive or negative? Like, is
Oh.
it good or bad?
Oh, for sure, all the way, like, to the extreme side of good, to the extreme side of positive. I remember, like, we had Petra, she was a newborn, and we had some friends come over there bringing us food and obviously, hold the baby, meet the baby for the first time. And they were definitely on the fence about having kids. They'd known many friends who had kids, and they were just like, yeah, I heard it's like the best, but it's also like the worst. And I was like, what a description of parenting, I guess. I don't know who they're talking to who was giving them those answers, but I was just like, I wouldn't agree with that. I would say it's hard. But then like it's such a blessing, and like I wouldn't take it back. And I'm just so excited. And I remember my girlfriend, she was basically like, yeah, I don't really know. And then as soon as she held Petra for the first time, she was like, I want a baby. Like, I want one of these. And this was like the first time I had ever heard her be very, very sure about like having a baby. And like a year later, they had their first child. And I was just like, yeah, it's kind of crazy how much is out there about like, well, get ready for your life to be over, and people say that about marriage too. They're just like, yeah, bro, oh, you're getting married. Well, it's nice knowing you. And it's like a death sentence. And there's like, oh, and you have kids? Like, oh, man, like, you really hate yourself. And it's like, if it was so bad, like, why would people keep doing it? Why would people keep getting married? Why would people keep having kids? I'm not saying everybody should be getting married. I'm not saying everybody should be having kids. But if it was so bad, like, why would people do it? Why would single people say, I want a child to adopt? If like having kids was so bad and ruined your life, and it was like so hard that like nobody could do it. So I'd say definitely for good. It's such an interesting life phase, because I've thought this in my head, and I've talked to different parents who kind of have this same thought, where it's just like, man, what was life before kids? Like, it's hard to even imagine. Like, I had free time. Like, what did I do with all my time? Like, I could have gotten so much more accomplished and everything. And I think that's the weirdest thing, is looking back, and it's like life pre-kids does not compute. Don't know what that is. And now it's just this forever in the future. But I love it. And it's just like, I don't know, it just blows my mind. Like, I'm pregnant, as some of you know, 7 months now. I'm in my 3rd trimester. I'm very tired. But my daughter's 6, and sometimes I just look at her and I'm like amazed. Like, I can't believe she's mine. And I'll just get like really like teary-eyed of just like, she's a whole person, and she talks, she walks, like everything, and she's so smart and funny, like a whole human being. And God like thought I was fit enough to handle this. Like, I don't know, it just really blows my mind. It really does. But it's really cool, and it is a gift, because I know a lot of people beg and plead and pray to be able to have the gift of raising kids and everything. So I know that I'm very fortunate to be able to have 2 biological kids, and in the future we will be adopting children as well. So bring it on.
That's me clapping, because you did a good job and you completed all of your challenge questions for today. Good job.
Yay. And it wasn't an hour long, so we did it. So that's it for this episode. I hope you guys liked it. It definitely seemed to turn into almost like a Dr. Phil episode of marriage and relationships and stuff. But those were good questions, Jerrell. Thank you for asking, because I'm sure a lot of people, they're thinking about this stuff. One of the biggest, I guess, categories of media is relationships and dating and marriage. So obviously people are super interested in that and want to know more. But yeah, I have so many videos about relationships, about our specific relationship from start to finish on my YouTube channel, if you guys want to check those out. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comments. If you have anything, if you want to answer the questions in the comments, to join the conversation, that would be cool. But either way, we're very glad that you tuned in. Thank you so much for your support and for listening. If you want to continue to support us, prayer is always awesome. Leaving wonderful reviews and comments and likes and subscribing. All of that obviously helps us out. And if you want to sow financially, we do have a secure link through PayPal. It's paypal.me/Kytia L'amour, and you can donate any amount of your choosing. So thanks again, and we will be talking to you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Well, you guys, thank you for watching this, hearing this podcast of Glowing Through It, and please give a big thumbs up and hit the notification bell, and please give the subscribe button some love. Thank you.